So good. So good. So many smart decisions in literally 2 pages that I'm like, how did Scott Snyder have this goddamn idea up his sleeve?
Yeah.
How did you work on Batman, Black Label and regular line stuff for like a decade, and you still had this thing ready to go? It's nuts. I really liked it.
In the Midwest, you know the best is there waiting, so come and join the conversation. Highs the approved, fan and artist and creator too. This is how the challengers do. What? Keep the conversation moving along. Keep reading comics, keep your local store strong. It gets hard and it's a job for the challengers. What? Comics and conversation, y'all.
From Challengers Comics and Conversation in Chicago, this is Contest of Challengers, a comics industry business podcast with
Patrick Brower.
Patrick Brower.
Patrick Brower.
Patrick Brower.
Patrick Brower.
Patrick Brower.
Patrick Brower and W. Dal Bush.
W. Dal Bush.
Dal Bush.
Del Bush.
Dal.
Del.
W. Dal Bush.
The majority of stoves in England are electric.
Do they call them stoves? Do they not have a different name for it, like lorry or something? I don't think they call a stove a lorry, but you get my point.
They definitely don't call it a lorry.
Okay. What about a lift?
They call it a hub.
They do not call it a hub.
It's a hub.
It's a hub?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
the majority of hubs in
there's there have been a couple of instances, like say Royal Wedding, or really highly viewed television programs that have caused literal power failures in the country.
The grid can't handle it?
Because everybody is making tea at the same time.
Wow.
So when you have millions of people turning on their hob, not hob.
Okay.
Turning on their hobs.
Okay.
All the power is being used at one time.
Huh. Yeah.
So it's a finite amount of power that can go around at one given time.
It's interesting. That seems weird and inefficient.
Well, it's just one of those things that you don't consider when you are building a power grid and maintaining a continual flow of energy available to the
that everybody
populace.
Might want to use it at the same time.
Yeah.
Feels like a thing you could design for.
I mean, that's kind of why...
I'm not a civil engineer, but I'm just saying, like, it feels like a thing you could design for.
Restaurants have surge pricing.
Sure.
If I may use that term for restaurants.
Sure.
Because the lunch menu and the dinner menu, while having the same foods, dinner menu is significantly higher. More people are demanding it at that point.
Mm.
I've never understood why ride shares can do that. Why, it's 10 p.m. Everybody wants to get to a bar, so you have to pay more.
Oh, because they can charge you more.
What is it about a service-based industry versus a product-based industry where prices are variable and accepted for it?
I would argue that even certain physical goods are, I never remember which one's which, fungible or non-fungible. Fungible, where the amount of money that you can charge for specific things can fluctuate based on the demand. Obviously, prices can go down if no one wants it, and prices can go up if everybody wants it. And they don't happen necessarily in like a dynamic pricing model, like an algorithm deciding it, but people frequently do that, where, I have this pair of shoes that everybody wants. Well, now I'm going to charge double what I paid for them. I have this collectible comic book that everyone wants, so I'm going to start charging a bunch more money for it.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking more along the lines of...
Like a can of beans?
Yeah. Retail priced, and I was going to say retail priced goods, but a can of beans could cost you a different amount if you buy it at Mariano's versus buying it at Whole Foods versus buying it at Jewel.
It's not like Whole Foods is charging a different amount based on the day of the week that you buy the can of beans or the time of day that you buy the can of beans.
Right, they've got a
or the
designated price.
Right. It rises or falls based on more macroeconomic things rather than, everybody in Wicker Park wants to buy a can of beans, so we're going to double the price. They don't do that.
In this analogy, when you say can of beans, are you thinking green beans or hot dog beans? Or
hot dog
pinto beans?
Brown beans, of course.
Okay.
Oh my God, what?
Well, in my head, it was, green beans.
Oh, okay. Weird. As someone who eats like beans from a can,
sure,
and not green beans, I'm surprised you weren't thinking of brown beans.
No, it's because I grew up eating canned vegetables. at home always.
Sure, but
Corn,
not,
peas.
but not straight from a can.
No, but you buy a can and you cook it.
Right, but like you literally eat beans from a can. You've done it this year.
Yeah. Also, when I ride the rails, that's fine. I have my bindle packed with beans.
Sure.
It's all good. There's no difference.
So
It doesn't
it's
matter.
like money on the rails.
Starscream's devastating. Oh, that's all I could read. Sorry.
Starscream's devastating origin, plus Scarlet's finale ushers in a new age for G.I. Joe. Hey everyone, we just wrapped up our big Energon Universe retailer call with you today. And what a great time to be talking Transformers number 13. That's Arun from Skybound.
Skybound on
Beginning of his letter.
about a retailer phone call that we didn't do because we're doing this.
Yeah, so I'm going to take a quick sidebar here. Transformers number 13 is the start of the next big storyline for Transformers, and it showcases Starscream's origin back on Cybertron before the war. The weird thing about it is that if you read the email from Image, like Image Central, they list George Corona as the one of the cover artists and the interior artist.
Uh-huh.
However, if you read other emails, specifically Transformers centric ones, or probably the one from Skybound, you'll notice that the interior artist and is noted on the cover, Jason Howard.
Yes.
Not George Corona. So even like the promo stuff in the Image Central stuff is, the creative team of DWJ and George Corona are back with a new story arc, and it's like, well, no. So I don't know if this is just a Jason Howard is filling in for a couple issues to do like a flashback thing, or once again 6 issues with an artist and they're out. Like I
mean,
I
look,
wouldn't love the latter if I'm being honest. I think Jason Howard's fine, but I would prefer a more consistent art team. And George Corona was great.
I think, and I agree, George Corona was great. I think that I mentioned this before. I was very worried about anybody following up Dan, but I thought George Corona was a perfect choice.
Yeah.
And
Jason Howard's done a bunch of their variants.
At the same time, as he finishes up his run on Transformers, they just finished his Ain't No Grave book with Scotty Young, also from Image.
Yeah. Which I always got the impression was done way before he started on Transformers.
Agreed. So, I don't know, maybe he just did the next volume of The Me You Love in the Dark.
Maybe.
And then
Middle West.
If there is another volume of that, who knows?
Yeah, I would hope that this is just a brief interlude where Jason Howard comes in to do
a flashback, like you said.
Yeah, a flashback thing, and then that's a couple issues, and then we're back to the main art team. But I didn't take part in their conference call, so I don't know.
You have no idea.
I'm sure they said exactly what's going on with the art teams.
You're talking out of your robotic butt right now. Although, look, any artist doing 6 consecutive issues on a book today is kind of rare.
Yeah. People rotate off so quickly.
I mean, not everybody is Fiona Staples, you know?
Yeah, but even Fiona Staples, I mean,
has plenty of time
I don't want to say it's easier to do it that way, but when you're only doing 6 issues a year, it maybe is not as difficult to stay on a book for 7 or 8 years. It's possible. I feel like it's a little easier than if you were having to put out 12 issues of a book a year or even 10 a year.
But think of any mainstream Big 2 book.
Sure.
And think of who's been a consecutive artist for 6 issues.
Yeah, Brevoort has talked about it in his Substack, the idea that when they think of artists now, they're mostly thinking of artists doing like 8 to 10 issues a year. So if you're planning on your book coming out at least monthly, you're going to have rotating art teams. You're going to have guest artists for a spell. You're going to have some solution to the idea that your main artist, is not going to bank enough issues pre-launch to do 12 issues in a year. It's just not going to happen. And then on top of that, Marvel as a publisher is super keen on putting people on a book for a launch arc and then taking them right off to put them on the launch arc of a different book.
But also running consecutive storylines with consecutive artists to be able to do 18 issues a year as opposed to 12.
Yeah, it depends on the book, but yeah, it's certainly with Spider-Man, you get the impression that they are slotting in different people to different things at different times.
In 2 weeks, X-Men number 4 is out.
Yeah.
When everybody else is, falling monthly.
I think it's not 2 weeks, it's next week.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm perpetually lost in the time frame of when books are out. Somebody asked me this week, what's something you love from this week? I had to look at the list and say, what is this week?
Mm-hmm.
For example, this afternoon, I was doing the breakdowns for September 25th.
Which is 2 weeks.
And let me tell you, September 25th, and I meant to get to this later in this podcast, but we're jumping on it now.
It's going to be a beast.
September 25th is massive by itself.
Yep. And then
17 new number ones.
Mm-hmm.
And that's counting like a My Little Pony miniseries.
Sure.
It's number one. When we talk about new number ones for the week, and this is on the podcast, in store, on our new release lists, and our emails, we're not counting facsimiles or second prints or third prints or whatever.
Right.
So while there may be like Power Fantasy number one, third printing or fourth printing or whatever, that doesn't go in our lists as far as a new number one. But one shots like Avengers Annual number one, which is an Infinity Watch tie-in.
All the Venom War tie-ins.
Yeah. Venom War Daredevil.
Mm-hmm.
Those are part of the 25th. But we've been having difficulty, and by we I mean challengers and of course the entire Chicagoland area and a lot of people that use Lunar, getting our books in a timely fashion.
Yep.
And that is still continuing. We didn't get them on Wednesday this week, but we got them still pretty late in the schedule.
Sure, middle of the afternoon on Tuesday.
And once again, it was because Dal had to go through extra lengths than just being open to receive a delivery.
Yeah, I kind of had to cajole our UPS driver a little bit to be like, can you please go a little bit extra in this to help us out? And he was kind enough to do so.
The truck was packed poorly and he couldn't find all of our boxes, and he said, can I come back later when I find them? And Dal basically said, no, you can't. I need these right now. Because it was Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah, and it was like literally a third of the Lunar order and a third of the Diamond order. So not having that stuff on Tuesday was like, I honest to God cannot do the rest of my job until all the boxes are here. So if you don't come back until like 4 o'clock, I will be here until 8. Like that's what's going to happen. So please, can you maybe not come back at 4, and when you're here at like 1 o'clock, please just find the boxes. And he did.
And if it wasn't
that's one of the things, and I'm sure we talked about this when we were talking about the Lunar stuff from before, that's one of the big problems with stuff showing up the day before release, is that if there are any problems, any delays, any hiccups, any obstacles, you run the risk of not having the product for release day. If he'd come in with the Lunar stuff on Monday and was like, can I come back later in the day? It's like, fine. Yeah, I'll do it tomorrow. It's not a big deal. But when it's Tuesday, it's like, I cannot risk it. I cannot risk you coming in 3 hours later because I am already under the gun to finish this. And that's not even counting. Thankfully, we didn't have any like shortages or damages, because that's the sort of stuff that if we report them the week before, we might get them in time for like the first 3 days of release. But if I'm doing it on a Tuesday, they ain't coming until next week.
Nope.
That's when it's happening.
But it's also because of the personal relationship we've built with this particular driver that he's willing to do it.
I'm sure any comic shop will tell you this, but one of the most important relationships you can build is with your delivery people. You make sure you give Christmas gifts to your UPS driver, your FedEx driver, your USPS delivery person. When it's hot out, you give them bottles of water. When it's the Halloween, you give them candy if you have it behind the counter. You go above and beyond to make sure that they are taken care of and that they have nothing but positive things to think about your business. Because I guarantee you at some point in your business's day-to-day activities, you are going to have to cash that in.
And the 16 and a half years that we've been open, we've had so many different delivery people. And I know other stores and not even comic shops that have literally had the same one UPS driver the whole time, barring a week vacation or something. Right. But we've had, dozens of them.
Yeah, we thankfully have people that like filter in and out. Like, I don't mean they come back, although we have had once or twice like a mail carrier come back after like 5 years. But in general, like we have people that stick around for a few months to a year, and then they might move to a different route, different day of the week, whatever, and then we just don't see them anymore.
And even now, we've got 3 regular mail carriers, one who is excellent, one who is okay, and one who cannot be bothered.
Yeah, thankfully we have the great one most of the time,
right.
Like knockwood. But the UPS, USPS, and FedEx people that we have most regularly now are great. They always come as early as they can. They deliver reliably. They're fast. They're efficient. They don't have any problems. It's great. very, very happy with where we're at with them right now. And it certainly has helped us the last couple weeks for all of them doing what they do.
I hope you have not just cursed us. Anyway,
knocked on wood.
You did. So this week's Lunar issue, aside from the delivery, which is a consistent and new
Frustration?
obstacle, frustration is good every week.
Uh-huh.
They have had printer delays for multiple publishers
Yeah.
for the last week. And it's funny because we got a notification today about
Is it?
Vault books being delayed.
Yep, they're getting pushed back to 9/25.
But I knew that a week ago. So one of the things that I've started doing is, because I don't like to wait until Tuesday to get the Diamond invoice to find out what's coming out the following week for Diamond publishers,
Yeah.
I'll go to League of Comic Book Geeks and look at their new releases.
That's what I do when I have to do any of the front counter printouts. When I need to find out, like, hey, what's coming out in 4 weeks that people might want? Oh, here you go. There's a list. You can
And they also
filter
have
by number
good
ones.
high-res photos, too.
I usually
helpful.
just go to one of our vendors for that.
So they would have, like, I looked at it last week, and it had things listed for next week, like Goobers #1 or The Missionary #1.
Well,
But I double check all that
Mhm.
and see, like, oh no, those aren't scheduled until the 25th, meaning something has changed. So I was aware of those, and sure enough, those are all being changed. So what we're getting now is printer delays for specific covers for specific titles. Not specific titles, not like, hey, you're not getting Transformers 12 next week. It'll be, hey, you're getting covers A, D, and F, and everything else is delayed.
all right.
And it's very annoying.
Certainly, especially for books that we're getting like variant covers, but not the A cover, or the A cover, but not the variant cover. And that means certain subscribers are going to get boned, because if you ordered the B cover, but that's coming in next week, I know that we have the A cover, but you didn't order that. You ordered the B cover, so you have to wait. Certainly it hurts us for the launch of Dan Johnson's and Riley Rossmo's The Moon is Following Us, which we have been promoting for a while and took a very heavy position on. We're getting the A cover on the 18th and the B and up cover for the 25th. The problem is we ordered a lot of the B cover because that's the Dan cover. So while we're getting the A cover and probably enough for subscribers, it's not really a book that we can push like we'd want to, because most of our quantity of it is in other covers that we haven't gotten yet.
And when I mentioned that the following week has 17 new #1s, it's not counting books like that.
Nope.
Because their official release was the week before.
Yep.
So now they've got to compete with everything else that's coming out at the end of the month.
Yep.
And look, we knew October was going to be a high volume release month because of DC's All-In initiative and all the new creative teams and all their new books.
Yeah.
But then everything else is just piling up.
It really is.
And it is
think of also the fact that we are going to be going into, in October, month 4 of From the Ashes, which means not only do we have all the launches from months 1, 2, and 3 that now are still coming out consistently, but now in month 4 we're going to be adding even more books, so that's even more of an X-Men line.
Yeah, so it's a full line at that point, because basically everything will be out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You had, I think, like 9 to 12 books launch over those first 3 months, and now I did a bunch of new miniseries.
So that's what makes this part even more discouraging. Is it's a well-known calendar occurrence that when September rolls around, business gets a lot slower.
Dries up.
I was going to say slams into a wall, but it's customary for September to do $12,000 to $16,000 less per month for the month than August did.
Yep.
And I don't know about anybody else's business, but having $16,000 less coming in
hard
when the output of the publishers is ramping up.
Sure.
It's disproportionate. It doesn't really factor into like, oh, well, there's more books coming out, so people are spending more money. They're kind of not.
Or conversely, they're not coming in as much, so our orders are going down. It's weirdly not that. Like, the thing that dries up the most in September isn't subscriber books or club polls or stuff like that. I do those FOCs. I pull those books when they come in. I unpack them. I can tell you that's not what's happening. What's happening in September is all of the casual traffic completely evaporates. The people who would normally come in and grab a couple graphic novels, some packs of cards, supplies, a stack of new books off the shelf, they don't come in. And when they do come in later in the year, October, November, December, they're not making up for lost time. It's not like they're going to go back and, let me get all the books that I missed in September. No, that's gone. That's not happening. So that's the part of the business that really ends up hurting. Like, the people who are subscribers who are still coming in on a weekly basis or a bi-weekly basis, it's not like they're more resistant to trying out the DC All-In stuff or the Mystique miniseries. They'll still do that, and those will do fine. But the additional chunk of people that would come in and look at the new this week section and grab a few books or, get a stack of manga or buy books for their kids, they don't come in. And that's the money that is just not there for the month of September. And that means that your weekly orders, it's not really anything you can do much about. Some of it is because the new books you're ordering so far in advance, it's a little hard to remember, like, I need to order less of this for September, because you still want to, in your head, think, no, these books will sell.
Sure.
And they will eventually go, and we will eventually move those copies. But we have to spread that out. But it's really the graphic novel stuff. Our reorders do get smaller in September because we're not selling as much backstock off the shelves. So that part of our budget can shrink down a little bit, the reorders. But the problem is that's, it's shrinking down because we're not selling anything, and we need to sell that stuff to pay for the weekly bills.
And some people say, well, kids are back in school. We're not a high school traffic store. The people that you're talking about not coming in, they're not students.
No.
And school starts like 2 to 3 weeks into August, when those couple of weeks are still decent for us.
Yeah.
And it could be like, oh no, well, parents are busy with kids in school and whatever. And yeah, but.
I mean, we've theorized what it could have been for years and years and years, but I don't think we've ever heard any one specific magic bullet where it's like, well, this is why it's happening, and now you can plan for it. There are fixed costs we have that, again, losing, 5 digits worth of money in a month. Our rent doesn't go down. The electric bills don't go down. Payroll doesn't go down.
Anything that's a part of the year where electric bills start to go up.
It's true. I don't know. We have the doors open a lot. It's nice.
Yeah, that's true. It's the gas bill that will definitely go up.
Sure.
As we get into the season more. But yeah, it's just that we have more fixed costs now than ever before.
Right.
And we don't have a fixed income.
Correct. Yeah. It's any retail environment. It's very seasonal.
Yeah.
Thankfully, ours are not as feast or famine as a lot of businesses. Like, there's stores where it's like, 80% of our revenue for the week comes in on a weekend, or, 50% of our revenue for a quarter comes in this holiday window. Like, we don't have that really. Like, our stuff is more about individual months, and those months can fluctuate, but the month itself is what we're looking at, not you have to do $25,000 on this one day of the week or everything is screwed for the month.
Right. Also, can we do $25,000 on a day this week? That would help us out.
We could do it, but the courts might consider it check fraud.
Oh.
Yeah.
Huh.
I mean, that's a question for lawyers, though. I'm not a lawyer.
It sounds like it's worth the risk. No, September is looking pretty dire from this standpoint. And laughably so. Like, do your worst, okay.
Yeah, uh-huh.
You are.
Yeah, we'll see where it goes, obviously. One of the frustrating things about this is that I don't want subscribers or regular customers who are listening to this to think that this is a problem for them to solve. Like, I think I hopefully just pointed out, it's not about subscribers and regular customers.
It's not you
about
guys.
the less frequent customers who come in semi-regularly over the summer, not coming in September. Like, that's just it. So that is gone.
There is a store in our neighborhood, not a comic book store, but also a entertainment destination store that has recently, like last week or the week before, posted one of those social media, hey, things are terrible right now. We need everybody who reads this to come in and buy something.
Yeah.
And They've done it a couple times before. They are a younger store than we are,
Mhm.
and they went through. And I'm their information is public,
Mhm.
but I'm not mentioning their name because I don't want it to feel like I'm shaming them, because I'm not.
Right.
I'm commiserating with them.
Absolutely.
But they've also recently had I don't know how to explain this. They kind of crowd-funded a major change in the way their business was run. And
Okay.
I thought that was enough to make their lives steady,
Apparently not.
but apparently not. So yeah, it's, I mean, I know it's everybody in every industry,
Yeah.
in every facet of retail and entertainment and media,
Sure.
but I don't own a movie studio or
You don't anymore?
a
Weird.
record store or an advertising agency
Sure. Yeah, it's
and a
unfortunate.
comic book shop
It's unfortunate.
for now.
Mm-hmm.
You know where the big money is, though?
I can't imagine.
Fantastic Four #1.
Yeah, set a record or something, right?
Yeah, Fantastic Four #1 at a 9.6, I think it was.
Ooh, that is
Just
a
sold at
glossy
auction
copy.
for $2.04 million.
I like the .04.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Not 2.1, 2.04. Over $2 million.
No, I just mean the 04 for Fantastic Four.
Oh, I gotcha. I don't know if that includes the fees, because look, it's a heritage auction, and when you win an auction for original art from Heritage, and let's say you buy Steve Dillon Preacher Page and it was $5,000,
Okay.
and you win it for $5,000, you're not paying $5,000. You're paying $5,000 plus all the associated fees that go on top of that.
That doesn't come out of the seller? It comes out of the buyer?
I believe it comes out of the buyer, yes,
Okay, interesting.
which makes it a lot harder for the buyer.
Because like eBay is the opposite of that.
Yeah.
If you win an auction
Yeah, the
for
seller
$50
is,
or something,
Sure.
you pay $50 and the seller gets $50 minus eBay
No, I'm
fees.
pretty sure that at least on the original art side, it is the buyer that has to
Interesting.
pay those fees.
Oh, okay.
So I wonder if that's the same for the single issue comic trade, or how it goes.
I wonder, regardless of who the money's going to, if it sold for $2.04 million, that's what the value is. It sold for $2.04 million.
Sure. Well, and also, if you're buying it for $2.04 million, you have the money to pay for a couple $1,000s extra.
What
in
if you
fees.
only have $2.0403 million?
Then
It's like, oh no, I
I
need
don't know.
more.
Yep. Then you quickly turn it around, or can you? Because that's a record high. Who's gonna pay that again?
You'd hope it goes up in value, but who knows?
It's at the point in the world where you could figure out exactly what the few highest grade books of certain books are, and not only that, but who has them.
Yeah.
Like the Amazing Fantasy 15s, I think there are 5 9.6s in the world.
Yeah, there's a CGC census that'll let you know how many copies at what grades.
Yeah.
The thing that is always interesting about a lot of those high grade, super rare books is that occasionally new ones come to market. Like somebody somewhere could discover a 9.7
Sure.
Fantastic Four #1 in someone's collection or in a box somewhere in an attic. Obviously, it seems unlikely that it would be a 9.7 if it's been in a box in an attic
Sure.
for 60-something years.
No.
but still,
It's still in plastic, Dal. It's worth money. It's still in
it's
plastic.
original plastic.
It's in its original plastic. They weren't in plastic normally.
Mhm.
I used to love when people
Also, that
would
is the
bring in.
Fantastic Four 9-cent adventure. Not what you think it is.
The Baltimore Comic Con exclusive. I love it when people would bring in books that they found from a relative or something. They're like, it's still in plastic.
Mhm.
And it's literally saran wrap. It's
One-
just plastic wrap that someone's wrapped around a book,
One of-
which is still a way to protect the thing.
Sure. One of my all-time favorite, someone comes in to sell comic stories from Challengers, was, we don't buy comics, obviously. So anytime someone calls up and says, do you buy comics? We say no, and we hopefully avoid them having to come in and having to tell them to their face, you've wasted your time.
Especially when they're lugging a giant box.
But obviously a lot of people don't bother going to that step. So they just come in and expect, okay, I have books to sell. Here's what I have.
Money, please.
Money, please. So at one point, somebody had come in and they said they have Batman #1, and they want to sell it. And, you know, stores in the United States have had people come in with collections, with high-grade books, with with rare comics that they don't know what they have, and they just come in and say, I've got this. And that store then works a consignment deal and profits off of being able to take those books from somebody who doesn't know what they have and put them in the hands of people who do know what those books are worth. This wasn't that. This was somebody who had a copy of Batman Gordon of Gotham #1. And I had to go, yeah, not only do you not have Batman #1, you have a random Batman miniseries from the 90s. This is worth nothing. You don't have anything of value.
Now, I understand people not knowing what comics looked like back in the 30s and 40s.
Sure.
And I understand thinking, oh, I may have something. But just looking at the advertisements in the book or the printing or the cover price
I was working...
or the fact that there's a barcode on it.
I was working in a comic shop in the 90s.
That is a lie.
And I overheard a parent say to the child, as they were looking at the comic shelves, oh, they have Batman comics now. So the idea that people would look at a comic from the 90s and go, well, this clearly can't be Batman #1, I don't think that computes. I think there's plenty of people who, one, have no idea when Batman started, and to them, like, especially, this was, in the 2010s, so it's somebody who maybe was born in the 90s, and this is like, a parent's comic or like
Sure.
an older brother's comic or something. And so they have no conception of when Batman started. To them, the 90s might as well be the 1940s. Secondly, I don't think most people have any idea that there could be more than one Batman #1. It says Batman on the cover and it's #1. It's Batman #1. Like the idea that, no, there's literally a Batman comic with a #1 on it every single month, continuously, for the last 40 years. There's literally hundreds of Batman #1s, just with a little subtitle that says something else on it. And
Unless they're going so far out of their way to not have Batman in the title, like From the Vault,
oh my God.
A Death in the Family, Robin Lives.
We put that under B for Batman, because
What a
why would you put
horrible
it under
title.
F for From the Vault? Why would you do that?
Batman, Gotham by Gaslight, The Kryptonian Age.
Gotta shorten that quite a bit more. I'm trying to fit it on the sheet. Somebody was in the other day and they were asking about if Batman Gargoyle of Gotham 3 had come out yet. And I said, no, it hadn't. And not only has it not come out, it's not currently on the schedule. And I looked back to find out when Batman Gargoyle of Gotham #2 came out. Patrick, do you know when it was?
It was definitely in 2023.
It was December of 2023.
Yep.
And I had to tell him,
Can you tell me when #1 came out?
I wasn't looking that far back. What I had to tell this person was, not only do I not know when the book is coming out, the soonest it could possibly come out at this point, based on the catalogs that we're going to be receiving, is like early December, maybe, and that's iffy. Which means it is a year between issues for that book, at a minimum.
So this is something I wanted to talk about earlier, and I put it off. There's a fairly new publisher that has some success under their belt, Distillery. And their formats are magazine size, square bound, double size issues, right? So you're basically getting 2 issues per issue.
For $9.
For $9. Yeah, so it's $9. So they're pricey, but also they're bi-monthly at a minimum. A lot of their series are 3 issues. Technically 6 if you want to expand a page count versus a regular standard comic. But I think that the idea of being bi-monthly, or in the case of Blood Brothers Mother, 3 months in between quarterly, that's a disservice to the comic buying public. Now, when it's only 3 issues, I assume all of this, I'm not a publisher, I'm assuming all of this has to deal with how much money they can afford to float up front to the creators, to the whole publication, to the graphic designers, to all of it. But
if possible, I would say then publish less comics.
If it's only 3 issues, don't start putting them out until you have all 3 done.
I don't know that they don't have all 3. I mean, again, it's unclear if this is a situation where the books aren't ready to go or the books can't be printed yet. Like, it's one of the two. I don't know.
That's the same thing with Aliens vs. Avengers. That's bi-monthly.
I think
It's only 4 issues,
more than that.
and it's bi-monthly.
The first issue came out in August. August, early September?
No, Avengers versus Aliens versus Avengers came out 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
Oh, that is August. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And the next one comes out in November.
Where are we at? Yeah.
So, I mean, it's pretty far out. It's like every 3 months. I've complained about this
For a 4-issue series.
a bunch of times, and it still is perplexing to me. All of the Scott Snyder Comixology original books that Dark Horse is putting out, they do 2 issues in a print comic. Like, it's so dumb, and this is all material that's already done. Why are you doing 3 oversized compilation issues when you could do 6 regular-sized issues? Like, not only is it a worse reading experience, because you get to the end of the cliffhanger of issue 1, and suddenly, well, here's the resolution
Turn the
2
page.
pages later, which means why even have the cliffhanger? The whole pace of the book is ruined. Not only do you have to charge more for the book, meaning a lot of people who would maybe try out a book are at $4 are not going to try it out at $6. You're also making less money because you could then sell issues 1 and 2 for $4 each, or you can sell a compilation of 1 and 2 for $6. This doesn't make any sense. Nothing you're doing is helping it at all. It's not going to sell better. It doesn't read better. It's just dumb. It's very, very dumb. And I don't know why they do it.
That the average comic buyer, this is a generalization, is less likely to buy a 3-issue series than a 6-issue series.
Maybe. I think it's tricky because I don't think most people know the duration of anything because most publishers don't put it on the cover. And
Or solicitation.
like, we order these comics, and I frequently don't know how long a miniseries is. I don't know what Venom War books are one-shots and which ones are miniseries. I could try and find out, but I also don't care.
Yeah, I understand that part. I do. While we do have a few customers, one in particular, who will only buy one-shots and miniseries. I want this new Wolverine book, but it's ongoing. I can't do it. But they also buy...
That's okay. There's 3 other Wolverine miniseries you can buy.
But they also buy every cover that we have of every miniseries or one-shot. It's like, if you bought less covers, you could buy a Wolverine ongoing. But, and that's
Think of it as a series of miniseries.
I just think that it's better for your entertainment value if you have more comics.
I've always felt that way in regards to buying multiple covers of the same comic book. Yes.
Well, how do you feel about Scott Snyder comics, since you just brought him up?
I like them okay. I read that Absolute Batman #1 today.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I felt
I did not get to that Black Canary. Thank you. I tried. But
Yeah,
I
sure.
didn't.
I felt it was important to read the Absolute Batman before we did the podcast this
Yes.
week because it was offered to retailers by DC, so I think it's fair game for us to talk about.
You know what? I think we should back up. At this point, we've both read Absolute Power 4
Yes.
and the All-In Special.
Yeah, we can talk about all 3 of
Yeah,
those.
let's go in order.
But I was going to say I wanted to make sure that I had read it because frequently you read a bunch of reviews and I don't. So you get to talk about all these books and I just have to go, oh, cool, yeah, I'll check that out in a few weeks.
Black Canary #1? Oh, cool. I'll check that out soon.
Yeah, so Absolute Power #4, I don't know if there's a ton to talk about. If you've already read Absolute Power 1 through 3, I think you're going to want to read the resolution of the whole story.
I thought it was a really good ending.
I think it's a solid book, and I think
I really like that as a series.
A strong miniseries because it's Mark Waid and Dan Mora all the way through. It looks great, reads good. Mark Waid, I think, is great at the kind of crisscrossing resolution to a big superhero story. He does it a lot in Batman Superman, where things are happening at a bunch of different places, but you always know what scene you're in and how they're interacting with each other, and the tension rises effectively through the book. It doesn't just start and stop. And then there's also a really cool epilogue that sets up the all-in stuff that they're doing. Not just the all-in special, but the whole idea of what it's going to be.
I think that Absolute Power was one of DC's best crossovers in quite a while, but I don't feel that the general public felt that way. I don't feel people excited by it when I think it deserves better.
Yeah,
a better reaction than it got.
It certainly didn't sell as well as like Fall of the House of X or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know another Marvel book to put it up against because I think Absolute Power was a bigger book than, say, like a Venom War, which is more isolated in what it's trying to do as opposed to Fall of the House of X, which obviously was just an X-Men thing, but X-Men is such a massive brand that they are basically their own publishing company. Anyway, Absolute Power, I think, did okay for us. I probably sold about half as well as Batman, and Batman's our best-selling regular monthly DC book, even though that's down quite a bit. The miniseries, however, did not go for us at all.
You mean the
Absolute Power Origins,
tie-ins.
Task Force 7, whatever the other ones were. Those did terribly for us. I mean, off the shelf, I think for some of those we were selling like 1 to 3 copies.
And I want to tell you that we ordered anemically low.
Yeah, and we still we had to really like turn down what we were doing by issues 2 and 3 because we overestimated. The tie-in issues for stuff like Batman, Wonder Woman, Superman, Green Lantern, Green Arrow, nobody cared.
No.
People who were buying those books kept buying them, but we did not have people jumping on for those comic books, and that's kind of a bummer, but also we weren't really expecting a lot. DC, I think, was doing a deal where you could maybe do some extra copies, but we would have had to reach for it, and thankfully we didn't do that because it didn't end up being necessary at all. But Absolute Power 4, really good. Highly recommended if you're at Absolute Power 1 through 3. I don't know if it's worth reading on its own if you're somebody who's excited about the Absolute stuff or the All-In special. I don't think it's necessary, but I think it's a good comic.
There's a lot of fun things that can be picked up on after Absolute Power that do not carry into All In.
Yeah,
that's for other creators to deal with in other books.
And I already mentioned this to you, Patrick. I don't think most creators are going to do anything with it. It reminds me very much of like Underworld Unleashed, where Mark Waid was like, I got these ideas, and every other writer went, I don't care.
Yeah.
It doesn't fit my story. Sorry. So like 1 or 2 people might if they think it's fun, but I don't think you're going to see it have a huge impact across the line. A lot of what Absolute Power is trying to do, though, is set up the idea of the Justice League has not been around since Dark Crisis. This is a story that makes the Justice League seem like a necessity in the DC universe, and what does that look like with the characters after Dawn of DC? Like, with all the work that company has done on Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, Green Arrow, The Flash, tons of other characters. Like,
all of the Dawn of DC books.
Now that you've done all that, how do you turn that into a massive super team? And the All-In special answers that question. It doesn't.
Massive super team is an understatement.
Yeah, I've for years and years and years have said that the version of the Justice League that I thought would have the most appeal for comics fans, and I thought was the dumbest thing that the DC publishing has never picked up on, was the Justice League Unlimited cartoon. That is one of my all-time favorite animated projects from DC. And I think the concept of core Justice League plus literally every superhero in the DC universe whenever you need them for a story, or just walking down the halls, is the coolest version of the Justice League. It separates them from the Avengers, which is more about, strike teams and cohesive units and that sort of stuff. Well, the Justice League should just be everyone in the DC universe. That's what's cool about it.
Yeah.
And this is that. This is the All-In special, setting up the idea of the Justice League Unlimited comic book that Mark Waid and Dan Moore are going to be doing, as well as, in a very cool flipbook format, setting up the Absolute universe that's going to be launching alongside everything that the All-In books are doing for the DC universe.
And there's structurally a thing that I think we're not going to talk about because it's a major concept for All-In.
Yeah,
but
I'll just mention the basic format that DC's talked about is that it's a flipbook, in that the All-In special is 2 stories that connect. There's a main story in the DC universe featuring by Josh Williamson and Daniel Sampere, which is all of the Justice League stuff.
And Scott Snyder.
Oh, is he also the writer on that? Okay,
yeah.
The copyright didn't have any credits.
Okay.
So just going off of what they'd said other places. But then there's another side, which is the side that's really setting up the Absolute universe, and that's Scott Snyder and Wes Craig. But these 2 stories are not just like A and B, they are 2 sides of one story. So how they get that across in the comic, I thought was very cool.
And you can read them in either order if you'd like.
Yes. I think we both read the Williamson-Sampere.
Well, that's because that's
DC
the way the PDF
side
was given to us.
Well, regardless, that's how we read it. So our take on it is largely going to be through the prism of that order.
Yeah.
I liked it. I thought it was really good. I think it's if you are a DC fan, it's a must read. If you are a casual DC fan, I think you'll enjoy it. If you're skeptical about what the DC universe is going to look like, I'd say still give it a shot. I would not say it is necessarily like you got to read it before you read Absolute Batman #1 to understand what's going on. I don't think you do technically.
No.
But I think you'll get a bigger picture of what the whole line is going to be about and how they're approaching it if you read the All-In special. I can't think of a reason, honestly, if you're even vaguely interested in what DC's doing for the rest of this year and into next year, to not pick up the All-In Special. I liked it.
Do you think I can say this without anybody getting mad, that the All-In Special is also the first published appearances of Absolute Batman, Absolute Superman, Absolute Wonder Woman?
I don't know. Maybe they'll get mad about it. I don't know. I'm sure other people, like, as soon as this stuff is made available, places like Cover Price and Bleeding Cool are already spoiling it. So, yeah, but no, yes, legitimately it is the first appearance of those characters. So
I just want people who are excited for those characters to know, if you're buying Absolute Batman #1, he's appeared somewhere else.
Yeah, but
not in a way that's going to interfere with the story at all.
I would couch it more as a cameo, but I think it is, technically it is the first appearance of those characters. If you are a collector and want to have the first appearance, the All-In Special would be considered the first appearance on cover for sure. And then in comic, I would consider it the first appearance. Because it's not just like a shadowy background where it's like, oh, that's the shape of Superman. No, it's literally like, here's like a Raphis End of Ultron. That's what this is.
One of the things I was more worried about with All-In leading into the Absolute Universe was there having to be, quote, reasons for the Absolute Universe.
Correct.
And I was worried about there being a very convoluted and heavy storyline that brings the Absolute Universe into play.
Yeah, for example, like the Ultimate Invasion story that sets up the new Ultimate line that Hickman was doing, as opposed to the original Ultimate books where it was just like, it's just a different universe, we're going. Now it has to be like, but how is it different? What fundamentally makes it different than the normal universe?
And depending on what Ultimate Universe books you're reading, that doesn't necessarily come into play as much. Like, it's very heavy in Spider-Man, but not really a thing in X-Men.
Yeah, at all. Yeah.
But having just read Absolute Batman #1, they don't reference any of that.
No, if you've read the All-In Special, you'll kind of understand tonally what they're going for, as far as like what is the kind of aesthetic thing that they're going for. How would you, if the DC universe is like Hope, like what is this universe?
Yeah.
What makes it different as like an operating emotional concept?
Did you read Scott Snyder's letter?
I didn't. I will read it later.
It's basically a way of saying, hey, look, we know there's a ton of violence in this book, but every iteration of Batman's origin has to deal with violence.
Right. And so, I mean, I guess we can kind of go into that. I liked Absolute Batman #1 a lot. It was the book for the Absolute line that I was least looking forward to, mostly because of the fact that Scott Snyder's written a ton of Batman comics over the years. I've read a lot of them. Some of them are all-time greats. Some of them are kind of repetitive and boring. Some of them are alternate universes. Some of them are flashbacks. Some of them are huge cosmic stories with the entire DC universe as a backdrop. So the idea of like Scott Snyder doing Absolute Batman to me was, it would have been like Jonathan Hickman doing Ultimate X-Men. It's like, you did this.
Yeah.
You did a huge version of this. I don't need more of this.
But
it's, and also I'm just gonna say it, Nick Dragotta, not my guy. East of West was not a Hickman book I stuck with. I wasn't a huge fan of his art. So him being the artist in this was kind of me going like, all right. I really, really, really liked Absolute Batman #1.
Also, the art's really good.
It's really good. He's really well suited for it. He's doing some very fun stuff with panels and
Layout
page layouts.
and storytelling. Yeah.
I think the coloring is really adding a lot to his line work. But I think the story is what a lot of people are going to lock into. And I was really impressed with how Scott Snyder approached this. I think tonally, I would say it's a mix of the Matt Reeves Batman movie and Dark Knight Returns. I think it kind of splits the difference of how those two creative teams / creators approached telling a Batman story that feels like it can stand on its own and be its own thing. There's a lot of really interesting ideas as far as how it's approaching the kind of basic, like, is there a penguin? Is there a Catwoman? Is there all the stuff that you normally think of when you think of like an Ultimate line or an Absolute line? But beyond that, it's how it's grounding it in a lot more modern version of a Batman origin. I don't want to talk too much about it because I would love people to discover it naturally. But their take on the Batman origin is so 2024.
I'll just say it. He's bitten by a radioactive bat. It's amazing.
Yeah,
He gets bat powers.
he does. And then he goes on TikTok. Does the bat dance. I'm doing it right now. You're seeing it.
Obviously-
You're watching me do it in your brain. The 1966 Batman dance.
Obviously, I'm lying.
Yeah.
Just so we're clear.
But the idea of kind of how
He's not bitten. He has sex with a bat.
a Batman who is formed by violence
You know the best way to do that? 69.
is
Bats are just hanging there. You just walk up, nom nom nom. There you go.
formed by different violence in
That is a- It was
2024,
a Dar O'Brien bit I just did.
but in a
FYI.
way that makes so much sense for that character and is so like, yeah, oh my God, this is maybe a better version of his origin than Joe Chill walks up in an alleyway and shoots him dead
Yeah.
for crime reasons.
But they still get to reference that.
They do, yeah. And then the last couple pages, so good. So good. So many smart decisions in literally 2 pages that I'm like, how did Scott Snyder have this goddamn idea up his sleeve?
Yeah.
How did you work on Batman, Black Label and regular line stuff for like a decade and you still had this thing ready to go? It's nuts. I really liked it.
Also,
yeah.
already the breakout character of the Absolute Universe is front and center in this book. It's great. In my opinion.
I'd love to know who that is.
It's pretty obvious. He's the...
The narrator character?
Yeah.
Oh, you think that's the breakout character?
I mean, in my mind,
That's
yeah.
interesting. That's interesting.
I think that is an incredible
I thought it was
version
cool for
of that
sure.
character.
Oh man,
Yeah.
and it's just a fun way to tell that part of the story.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. It's every decision in there is one where I'm like, this is so smart. I can't believe no one's done this before. I want to read this story.
Yeah.
I want to read this version of Batman. Feel bad for the mainline DC writers because they don't get to use that version of Batman. It's great. It's
Just wait till 5 years from now when they do the crossover.
yeah, Absolute Batman is genuinely great and made me a total believer in like what this line is doing. And it was the book I was least excited for. Good news is, as you're listening to this, if you're listening to this before like Monday the 16th, still available for pre-order. They added, I think, 2 more covers today.
Jeez.
No, FNG, I think.
Not 2Gs. Not 2G covers.
But you could definitely still
Oh,
pre-order.
geez.
We're gonna order a ton. We're gonna make sure that this is in everybody's hands that wants it as much as we possibly can. But I would, if you want certain covers, like we're gonna have a ton of the A cover. If you want other covers, I would highly recommend that you pre-order them because I'm gonna tell you flat out, I can't order a ton of copies of every single cover for the shelf,
Correct.
and nor do I want to, frankly.
Correct.
Um,
So let me ask you this question, Dal.
mhm,
Knowing how good it is,
mhm,
and knowing what people think of the Batman,
mhm. Are
and
they still
having
fans? Do they,
having talked to
I thought they were all Penguin fans.
a
now.
friend of ours over the weekend at a wrestling
Uh-huh.
event,
Higher, bigger number.
should we just copy over anybody who gets Batman?
No, I don't want to do that. Because I don't, while I think it's an easy pitch to anyone who reads Batman, I'm usually, as much as we do it, I'm reluctant to do the,
You say as much we do.
we just signed you up for it.
barely do it.
But that's the thing, like, we do it fairly regularly, at least as far as the people who hate that we do it, they think we do it all the time.
Sure.
But Vengeance of Moon Knight to Moon Knight Fist of Khonshu, that makes sense to me.
That's a no-brainer. Yeah.
Right.
It's the same book.
But like Ultimate Moon Knight, I wouldn't be like, as good as it is, I wouldn't be like, I'm going to sign everyone who gets Moon Knight up for that. I don't want to do that. It's different writers, it's different continuities, it's different approaches.
I'm sorry, is there Ultimate Moon Knight?
I think yes, technically he's an Ultimate Black Panther, but he doesn't have his own book.
Oh, okay.
And also,
right.
Also
Okay.
it's 2 guys.
Sorry. I thought like an actual series. Okay, gotcha.
No, I was using.
Also, who can tell that Patrick doesn't read Ultimate Black Panther anymore?
But honestly, I wasn't even referencing that with my example. I just meant in literally like
Sure.
if there was an Ultimate Moon Knight book, I wouldn't think that Moon Knight readers should automatically get it.
Yeah, if anything, Ultimate Moon Knight should be 4 characters.
Oh no.
A customer had said this, and I hadn't heard this, but they had heard that the first X-Men crossover is Avengers versus X-Men.
I hadn't heard that either.
And I thought
I don't know where they
that
would
would
have heard
make such perfect sense because Jed McKay writes them both.
Yeah. I would prefer they do that one as like a chapter to chapter crossover where it's just like 3 issues of Avengers, 3 issues of X-Men,
Yeah.
1 writer. maybe one artist. That would be the way to
What
go.
about an Alpha and
I
Omega
always like when,
in 6 tie-in miniseries?
yeah, each
And
week
4 one-shots.
for 3 months. Yeah, probably. Yeah, if they could get just one artist to do it, get like, what's Heather Grown doing? Have him do 6 issues. Do that.
Oh, I hear Martin Coccolo is doing it.
It's fine.
And also Carlos Gomez, they're rotating.
I like Martin. I like those 2 artists.
I know, but I'm just saying,
Artists.
what I'm saying, those both have just been granted new titles.
Sure.
Fantastic Four 25 from this week was
Exceptional.
the best issue of that series so far in a series that's been phenomenal.
So I would there's an issue, and I can't remember which one it is. It's the Metamind issue. Metamind is a 2-parter, but the second one is the one we really get into the Metamind concept.
Okay. Yeah, but you can't pick that one up. You read it by itself.
You can't, but I'm going to go ahead and say, like, if Ryan North was done with this book tomorrow, and God willing he won't be, that was the issue that hit me the hardest. I literally cried reading that issue. It is the saddest ending and like the most like tragic sci-fi story. But 25 is a close second. It's so good and so unexpectedly like romantic and sad and weird and dark and hopeful, and like it's literally everything you want in a Fantastic Four comic.
And for a while, Fantastic Four was suffering from less than stellar art.
Mm-hmm.
And they
I
finally
hated
got
the artist who started that book.
Carlos Gomez, who
Hated
was from Exterminators. And we're like, oh my God, this book is finally good. Well, they've announced that Carlos Gomez is now doing the new Venom series, all new Venom,
Mm-hmm.
that Al Ewing is doing, coming out in November, I believe.
Yeah.
So that means he's off Fantastic Four.
Yep.
Which, I mean, I get it. If you're an artist, what's more fun?
I mean, I don't know about more
all
fun,
sorts
but
of
certainly what's...
sciencey structures and...
But it's probably just what's a bigger book. You got to worry about your career, your work for hire guy.
It's bigger than the book that launched the Marvel Universe.
The World's Greatest Comics magazine, right?
That's exactly what it is.
No,
yeah.
that's what they call New Venom now. I'm sorry. That's...
Oh,
No.
whoops.
Yeah, I see your confusion.
Oh well. But yeah, I picked Martin Coccolo and Carlos Gomez because Martin Coccolo
They
is
just landed on new books.
Yeah, he's doing Wolverine and he's doing Venom.
Yeah, again, like we talked about before, I wouldn't be surprised if Carlos Gomez did the first 6 issues of Only Venom and then landed on a completely different book. Martin Coccolo did the first 5 Wolverines and then landed on a different book.
It's musical titles, that's for sure.
It's a little frustrating as a fan. It certainly is a retailer when you're trying to sell a book and by issue 6 it's going to be a completely different creative team, and maybe that's not a completely different creative team, but certainly a different artist.
Different look. It's the thing as a neck now.
Mm-hmm.
So something I've wanted to mention for the last couple of weeks is we made a change to a section in the store. We broke out a new category.
We did.
We've taken our drama section and...
Which is kind of a catch-all of a lot of different genres.
Yeah, like action-adventure. There's not enough books for action-adventure to have its own section.
Yeah, romance.
So those become drama.
Right.
But we also would mix in nonfiction books into drama. And now we broke them out. They have their own shelf, a nonfiction section.
And you might think, well, challengers would absolutely want to do that for, Pulitzer Prize-winning books and huge memoirs. Incorrect. We did it for cookbooks.
Yeah, there you go.
They were basically enough cookbooks now where we're like, we got to have a separate section, but we don't have a section just for cookbooks. How about nonfiction?
Well, soon enough, we're probably going to have a section just for cookbooks. But anyway... so we do have a nonfiction section, but as with everything that's published, books fall under multiple categories.
Oh, do they ever?
So there are plenty of books in Sidekicks that are nonfiction. All of the science comics, all of the maker comics, a lot of the how-to, the Nathan Hale's history books, anything that's the history of Chicago Fire, things like that.
The Barbara Streisand Little Golden Book.
Exactly. There's a lot of nonfiction there. There's a lot of nonfiction in YA.
There's a book coming out from a Penguin Random House publisher shortly that I want to say the title was Baby's First Taylor Swift Book. Babies first.
Yeah. Babies
need to learn about Taylor Swift.
Yeah, you don't.
They're going to have multiple Taylor Swift
we're
books
going to have it
over their life.
You think we're not going to have that book?
And this is the first one that the baby has, as opposed to.
Do you know
toddler's first Taylor Swift
how
book?
many people are going to buy that as a gift for their friends who are pregnant?
I think about that sometimes when I see the various like Zendaya Little Golden Book. It's like, should we carry that?
No, but we should definitely carry Baby's First Taylor Swift Book.
I want to double rack that with Brave Like Godzilla.
Fine.
2 world crushing monsters that can do whatever they want.
That's right.
And answer to no one.
I really appreciate Godzilla coming out on the side of the presidential election and telling people to vote and to make sure that they look up the issues that are pertinent to them.
Exactly.
Go Godzilla.
Yeah.
So
nuclear proliferation, I think, is one that
it's a big topic. Yeah. So there's plenty of nonfiction, memoir, biography stuff in our YA section, and of course, like we just said, in Sidekicks.
Mm-hmm.
But the more mature things are in their own nonfiction section, right next to drama. It goes humor, drama, nonfiction.
It gets more serious as you go from left to right.
And then it goes into right to the stack of facsimiles and reprints.
It actually goes right into half-off books, which we seriously want to get rid of.
Yeah. But what we don't want to get rid of is you, because you let us do this. So thanks for listening.
And keep reading comics.
Come buy some things in September. Or buy things online. That's cool.
Or any month. Every month.
Yeah. Sure. Every month is good.
Yeah.
September definitely, though.
Yeah.
This has been Contest of Challengers. Thanks for listening. Keep reading comics. Challengers is located at 1845 Northwestern Avenue in the Bucktown neighborhood of Chicago. 773-278-0155. Keep up to date with new releases and events at challengerscomics.com. And help fund this podcast at patreon.com/challengers.